I'm Meagan Skidmore, and welcome to the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. I'm a woman, daughter, sister, spouse, mother, life coach, and person of faith on a mission to normalize asking questions and allowing doubts on a faith journey and all aspects of life. Join me as I bring this traditionally taboo topic out of the shadows of shame and into the light. I firmly believe we normalize through more talking and engaging in discussion. More talking peels back, exposes, and erases the layers of shame associated with asking questions and allowing doubts. When we are more authentic about our journey, we are more powerful because shame has no power in the face of authenticity. First Friday's free coaching, a confidential group to bring all the questions, vent frustrations, share fears, express doubts. Navigating a new and uncertain reality is hard enough. Let's remove the worry of judgment from others. In this group, I will help you help yourself so that you can be there for your child, family, loved ones, and for you too. Click the link in the show notes to sign up. You must complete the agreement. Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. It actually comes from a lesson I recently taught for a monthly gathering. And if you're not familiar with gatherings, I invite you to go to liftandlove.org/gather for more information. The gatherings stem from the Gather Conference, which first took place September of 2023. And incidentally, there will be a second one this coming September of 2024. You can join a group or create your own if none exists in your area. And basically, it's an inclusive Sunday school curriculum that was created by queer folks, Ben Shalati and Colette Dalton, and is based on the Come Follow Me program from the LDS Faith. So I host one virtually for folks in the DFW Metroplex. And even if you don't live in the Metroplex, you're invited to join. And last month, we discussed the allegory of the olive tree found in Jacob chapter 5, which is in the Book of Mormon. And as I was preparing for that and taught it, there were some concepts that really stuck out to me that I wanted to share with you today. So I will leave links to all of the things that I'm quoting in the show notes, as I usually do. And so to get started, for the purposes of this discussion, the allegory of the tame and the wild olive trees is a likeness of Israel and the Gentiles. And for the purposes of this discussion, the definition of House of Israel in Mormonism or in the LDS Church refers to God's covenant people, and also that every person who embraces the gospel is adopted into the house of Israel. And then a Gentile is everyone who is not. So I'm going to start by reading this passage, okay? And it starts with verse 3, and I'm going to go through verse 8. It says, "For behold, thus saith the Lord, I will liken thee, O house of Israel, like unto a tame olive tree, which a man took and nourished in his vineyard, and it grew and waxed old and began to decay. And it came to pass that the master of the vineyard went forth, and he saw that his olive tree began to decay, and he said, I will prune it and dig about it and nourish it, that perhaps it may shoot forth young and tender branches, and it perish not. And it came to pass that he pruned it and digged about it and nourished it according to his word. And it came to pass that after many days it began to put forth somewhat a little young and tender branches. But behold, the main top thereof began to perish. And it came to pass that the master of the vineyard saw it. And he said unto his servant, It grieveth me that I should lose this tree. Wherefore go and pluck the branches from a wild olive tree, and bring them hither unto me, and we will pluck off those main branches, which are beginning to wither away, and we will cast them into the fire, that they may be burned. And behold, saith the Lord of the vineyard, I take away many of these young and tender branches, and I will graft them whithersoever I will. And it mattereth not that if it so be that the root of this tree will perish, I may preserve the fruit thereof unto myself. Wherefore I will take these young and tender branches, and I will graft them whithersoever I will." So a few definitions, okay? Pruning. What is pruning? Pruning is the process when individual branches are cut selectively. Let's contrast that to shearing, which is the process when all branches are cut indiscriminately. Pruning involves the selective removal of certain parts of a plant, such as branches, buds, or roots. There is intention and purpose behind pruning, whereas shearing, not so much. Okay. I want to introduce the ideas or the concepts of an apostate or a heretic versus someone who is progressive thinking. And I pose the question, how can a Jew be called an apostate for leaving Judaism for, we'll say, another faith? And a Christian can also be apostate for leaving Christianity for another or no religion. Because I believe a faith journey is ongoing and is evolving and a process. I propose that apostate is an outdated and inaccurate term. Traditionally, it means adopting an opinion that goes against one's previous religious beliefs. From Oxford Language's, apostasy is the abandonment or renunciation of a religious or political belief. Its origin is from ecclesiastical Latin apostasia, from a late Greek alteration of the Greek apostasis, meaning defection. So it makes me wonder, why use such archaic terminology that ultimately pits one against another? I believe there's another way. So here's my thoughts on that. What if the beliefs or tenets of the faith or religion, which we could say in applying this to the allegory of the olive tree, those would be found in the tame olive tree? What if they have decayed and are in need of pruning, digging, and nourishing so that it can have a chance at new growth? Or as the passage in Jacob 5 says that I just read, that perhaps it may shoot forth young and tender branches and perish not. What if the fruit is no longer good, nor does it bring health and nourishment to the body and soul? That question brings to mind the exclusion of the priesthood for our Black members of the church. This was fruit gone bad. What about those who expressed beliefs leading up to the 1978 declaration by President Kimball at that time of the LDS Church that were initially in contrary to the church's stance? Should they be considered apostates or heretics, which is someone whose ideas goes against the norm? Or were they persons who were progressive thinking, persons who were genuinely faithful and leaning into what the Spirit, what their inner wisdom, their intuition were teaching them? I ask, why classify, group, divide, label, shun, qualify, and quantify human beings? To me, that is not a Christ-like approach. And this leads me to my next point, and this is found in verses 6 and 7, and it's this idea of grafting, okay? Even after pruning the decay and digging about it and nourishing it, okay, there did begin to become put forth somewhat a little young and tender branches, but the main top thereof began to perish. Okay, so the top was still perishing. The pruning, digging, and nourishing it wasn't sufficient. So then the master of the vineyard requested the servant to go graft in branches from the wild olive tree to the tame olive tree. So grafting is a horticultural technique where tissues of plants are joined so as to continue their growth together. The upper part of the combined plant is called the scion. And so this would be the branches that are plucked from the wild olive tree, while the lower part is called the rootstock, which would be where these wild olive branches were placed into the tame olive tree. And the success of this joining requires that the vascular tissues grow together. Just because something is grafted doesn't necessarily mean that it will be successful. There has to be an appropriate wound, a healing of that wound grow together. Grafting is a technique that joins two plants into one. In general, a wound is created on one of the plants and the other is inserted into that wound so that each plant's tissues can grow together. The wound needs to be protected until it heals in order to avoid pests and diseases entering the graft. I got that from thisspruce.com, and I will leave that link. Now, the advantages, according to the Oklahoma State Extension, the use and demand for grafted vegetables, for instance, have been growing worldwide over the last decades. Advantages include better resistance to pathogens, drought, and other environmental stresses. It includes more vigorous growth and higher yield. And they also allow for fewer inputs, such as pesticide applications and an extended harvest season. So what is this analogy? How does it apply to something like a group or an organization, like a religious organization or faith? For that, I go to verse 8, where it says, the Lord of the vineyard says, I take away many of these young and tender branches, and I will graft them whithersoever I will. And here's what I wanted to focus on. It mattereth not that if it so be that the root of this tree will perish, I may preserve the fruit thereof unto myself. The master is not focused on the root, but rather the master of the vineyard is focused on the fruit. All of this newness introduced has created the opportunity for new fruit to grow. And an interesting to note is when grafting, you are creating something that has never existed before. Its DNA is new and unique. That's fascinating, right? That means we haven't seen, tasted, or experienced this fruit before. It is new. Pruning, digging, getting out the decay, then grafting in the new is future focused. It is creation focused. It is restoration focused. It acknowledges that creation and restoring is an ongoing process. There is no point of arrival. It is progressive. So in wrapping up, I leave you with this question to ponder. What ideas or individuals, groups of people, or concepts can you think of that would be like the wild olive tree branches grafted into the tame olive tree to bring new life and to create new fruit that has not existed before? Additionally, what ideas, concepts, etc., are in need of pruning that have decayed and need to be cast into the fire? All of these are exciting and thought-provoking concepts. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I'd love any input or thoughts that you have to share. Shoot me an email, hello@meaganskidmorecoaching.com. Until next time. Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast is a proud member of the Dialogue Podcast Network, which is part of the Dialogue Journal found at dialoguejournal.com. Founder Eugene England was a Mormon writer, teacher, and scholar who wrote, "My faith encourages my curiosity and awe. It thrusts me out into relationship with all creation and encourages me to enter into dialogue. My hope is that this podcast is an extension of that vision." Hopeful Spaces is a Dallas Hope Charities component of Hopeful Discussions, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz Financial Services USA. It's a free monthly parent, ally, or caregiver support group facilitated by Meagan Skidmore Coaching. Email chc@dallashopecharities.org for more info. Visit MeaganSkidmoreCoaching.com to find this podcast and additional free resources, including the link for a complimentary coaching session. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram for more, or to send me a DM. Help the podcast grow. Please follow, review, and share with a friend.